everyone. Welcome to another edition of Nick's Impromptu Reviews. My name is Nick, and today it's Monday, February 3rd, 2014, which means that it's the day after Super Bowl 48 that occurred yesterday between the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks. And after watching the Seahawks surprise the world by crushing the favored Broncos, I thought it'd be appropriate to review a classic board game by Games Workshop called Blood Bowl. And Blood Bowl, basically, it's a football game set in the Warhammer Fantasy universe. Okay, and in case you don't know who Games Workshop is, they're the publisher that is famous for Warhammer 40K and Warhammer Fantasy. Okay, so they're like the I would say the king of the miniature war game right now. But back about 25 years ago, over 25 years ago, mid to late 80s, they created a game called Blood Bowl, this game right here. And it went through 3 iterations. The first edition, like I said, came out in about 87, I think. I know I could be wrong, 86, 87. And basically, it's a football game, okay, that is set in the Warhammer Fantasy universe. So the fluff around this, which is pretty hilarious, and Games Workshop is, they're really good on backstory. Well, the backstory of this, it's a lot lighter than their Warhammer Fantasy world or Warhammer 40,000 world. But the fluff here is that during a Warhammer Fantasy battle between the orcs and the dwarves, after the battle, when they were collecting the bodies, they ran across an NFL playbook, okay, and then they had a dwarf sort of translate it, and people were interested, and so now you have the races playing Blood Bowl, okay. So obviously the rules are lost in translation because this is a very bloody game of football, okay. In fact, it has like the rules of rugby more than football, but still it does have a football feel to it. It's a 2-player game. There are about 26 official races, but the base game comes with humans and orcs, okay, and we'll see that later. But it's been around for a long time, and it created a lot of leagues, a lot of hardcore players, and so it does have staying power, okay. I loved it back then when I played it. I loved first edition, second edition, and this version, and I have played it probably every year since it was created, okay, and I've always liked it. But over 25 years now, does it still hold up? Let's find out.
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of a components breakdown here. Okay, first you have your football field, and it's kind of like a grid, just like in football, thus gridiron, okay, and it has squares which represent the spaces, and then you have 2 end zones, and the object is to, well, in case you don't know football, is to have one of your players get to the end zone of the opposing player's field, okay, and you get a touchdown. All right, so that's the field, and the field has little score markers right here, and there's only touchdowns, so there's no field goals or anything like that, so it's pretty much 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, each touchdown is just 1 point, okay. Then you have the dugouts, right, and the dugouts, you'll have your reserves in there, your knocked out players, and your injured or dead players. It also has a turn marker and a reroll marker, okay, and there's one for each team. And then you have the templates, okay, and first you have the scatter dice templates, so in case someone misses the ball will scatter, okay, representing the bounce, okay, and there's other ways to use that as well. And then you have the sideline throw-in marker, so if the ball goes out of play, then the audience throws it back in, and they roll a d6 to see where the ball goes. And then you have the throw marker, okay, and put it back that way. Well, can you read it? All right. Well, anyways, and it measures the length of the pass, okay, and so the long bomb's the hardest to make, and the short pass is the easiest. So let's say if this player is passing it to, I don't know, or this quarterback, let's say this guy is passing it to the catcher over there, all right, it falls underneath the short pass marker, so it would be designated a short pass, okay. And then you have the dice, okay, and you have these special 6-sided dice for blocking, and you have your normal regular dice for armor rolls, and this is the D8, you need that to roll the scatter, all right. And last but definitely not least, you have the miniatures, okay? And you have, at the base game, it starts out with 12 humans and 12 orcs, okay? And they are not painted. I painted these myself, so you're going to have to paint them. You take some time and paint them. But here I have my dark elf team on the left and my human team on the right, okay? And like I said, if you want to buy other races, you'll have to go look for them. But the base game, it comes with 12 orcs and 12 humans, which is enough to play a game, a nice friendly game. Your roster can have up to 16 players. You can only have 11 players on the field, and the rest will have to go in your reserve. Okay, so that I believe is all the main components, and let's take a look at some of the gameplay. Okay, so now let's look at the stat cards of each team. Alright, so each of your teams, they're going to have different stats, alright? And for the humans and the orcs, there's these handy-dandy little cheat sheet that you have for your human and orc teams. But for the other teams, you got to look in the rule book. And in the rule book, they have like stats for all the other races. Okay, but let's look at the human team for a second. Okay, so as you can see, there's the different attributes that each player has. Okay, so and you have different types of players. So humans, you have the linemen, you have the catchers, you have throwers, and you have the blitzers, which are like the superstars of the game. They're like supposed to be like a great combination of speed, agility, and strength. Okay, so blitzers are like probably your most powerful. Now other races, they have like other different positions, but in general, blitzers are good. Okay, so anyways, linemen, those are like the vanilla players of your team. All right, so let's look at the lineman stats right now. Okay, so linemen, okay, they have a movement of 6, which means they can move 6 squares, and that does include diagonal. All right. They have a strength of 3, agility of 3. Now, strength and agility, they're pretty important. The strength, obviously, is for your ability to, it tells your ability to knock down a player, to block a player, to throw a block at a player. And your agility, it's a skill that lets you catch the ball or dodge a tackle and all that. And your armor, the higher the better. The armor prevents you from getting injured or knocked out. Okay. Now for strength and agility, 3 is about the average. And humans, they're pretty well rounded, so they have average strength and average agility. Anything more than 3 is good. Anything below 3 is bad when it comes to agility and strength. And movement, I think that's about the average movement. 5 may be a little slow, and some races are slow. Armor is about the average armor. Okay, anything higher is good armor, anything lower is kind of weak armor. And also skills. Some players have skills. For instance, the catcher, they have catch and dodge, but like I said, their armor is 7, their strength is 2, so they're very weak. However, their movement is 8, so they're pretty fast. Okay, so these are basically the wide receivers. The throwers, okay, they have average stats, but they also have the sure hands and pass skill. And the blitzers, like I said, those are the superstars. They have pretty high movement, decent strength, agility, good armor, and they have the block skill. Okay, so every player, they're kind of specialized, and they'll have different weaknesses and strengths. Okay, so you really have to understand how your team is built in order to play. Okay, so let me explain another thing called tackle zones, which is another important concept of this game. A tackle zone, okay, when you have a player, each player that you have exerts a tackle. And a tackle zone is every square adjacent to them, including the diagonals. Okay, so for this case, this human lineman, his tackle zone is right here, 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 here. So the squares that form a box around him, those are the tackle zones, all right? And that is very important in this game, okay? First of all, if you're in the tackle zone if you're adjacent to another player, you can block them. Also, if you pass through someone's tackle zone, okay? First of all, if you enter a tackle zone and you stay, that's fine. But if you decide to move out of a opposing player's tackle zone, you'll have to make another agility feat, just like how that guy rolled a to pick up the football, okay? Now, generally, moving out of a tackle zone is it's also a +1 to do with an agility feat. Okay, so like the picking up the ball, you know, it's gonna give you a +1. Now, elves have, or dark elves have, an agility of 4. Okay, so this dark elf is going to have to roll a 3 or more for any other agility roll, but because moving out of a tackle zone into moving out of a tackle zone is +1, just like picking up the football, this person only has to roll 2 or more. Okay, so they rolled a 6, so they passed the tackle zone, so she was able to move here and move out of the tackle zone, no problem. Okay, and they can continue their movement. Okay, now, however, if, let's say, this person was right here, okay, so if this human was right here and they're moving and she's moving out of that tackle zone to over here for whatever reason. Actually, let's put her right here so she won't be able to move down there. So let's say she moves right here, okay? Now, because she's moving into another tackle zone, right? It's gonna be a -1, okay? A -1 to move into another tackle zone, okay? So instead of a 2 or more, she has to roll a 3 or more to dodge over there. And she rolls a 5, so that's good. All right, so now that's perfect. So now I can show you this example. Now let's say she wants to move again, okay? Now this is, remember, this is during 1 turn, okay? So let's say she wants to move right here, okay? Well, she's gonna move over here, and he'll be able to make a tackle. Now, what you have to do is, now she's moving into a tackle zone with 2 players, okay, with 2 players adjacent to it, okay? So 2 players are exerting a tackle zone on that spot. So guess what? It's a -2 this time to dodge into that square. So that's a 4 or more, so it's a little harder, and she fails, okay? So what happens is that she gets knocked over, okay? And whenever you get knocked over, you have to roll let me see, let me put her face up. You have to roll underneath your armor, okay? Now, this is the human stats. I have the elf stats, but they're in the rulebook. I don't want to get it. But the humans have armor of 8. Now, if I recall, okay, that's a dark elf blitzer, all right? Dark elf blitzers have a armor of 8 too. So what happens whenever you fall over, the opposing coach gets to try to penetrate the armor, okay? So if the armor is 8, if they roll a 9 or more, then she's injured. Okay, she's okay. So she rolled under the armor, so she's okay, all right? Anyways, that's the importance of tackle zone, and that's real important when you're trying to create your block schemes. Okay, so now let's look at another important thing, the block, okay? Now, suppose it's the dark elf's turn right here, okay? And the dark elf is adjacent to this human catcher right there. All right, so what happens is that one of the actions you can take is a block. So basically you're attempting to knock them over, knock the opposing person over. So what happens is you roll this special 6-sided dice that has different symbols on it. Okay, so let me go over the symbols here. All right, so 2 of the symbols are arrows. That means push. So if you go ahead, if you roll one of these, that means you're able to push the person a square back. Now, it could be any of the 3 squares on the opposite side. So in this case, the dark elf, if she rolled the push, she can push the human to this square, or that square. Okay, so let's just say she pushes to this square, and you have she has the option to follow up. In other words, to occupy the space that the human did before. All right. Okay, so that's the push. Okay. And next you have, they call this the POW. All right. So that's what you're ideally looking for as block. You're basically, you block them. So not only do you push them back, it's just like a push. Not only do you push them back, you knock them over. Okay. And like I said, whenever you knock someone over, you get to make an armor roll. This is a catcher, so he's pretty weak. So any roll over 7, you injure him, and yes, he gets injured, and you got to roll his fate. and there's a chart out there, and 7 is a stun, so he's turned over. And when you're turned over, the only thing you can do on your next turn is turn up like that, and then the following turn you'll be able to get up at a cost of 3. Okay? Yeah, so if you're down and on your turn, all you can do is get up, and that'll cost you 3 squares, 3 movement squares. Okay, so that is the block. Alright, so next on the dice, okay, so you had two sides with the push, one side with the block. Now you have one with the block with a exclamation point on it, alright? So what that means is that if you roll this, you'll knock him over unless the person over here has dodge. And I believe the catcher has dodge, okay? So if the person has dodge, then rather than a knockover, it's just a push, okay? So if they had dodge, they'll be able to push it, okay? Now the next one is both fall down, okay? Now if they roll this, then both players fall down and they have to make an armor roll for both of them, okay? And unfortunately, even if you did make a successful block by knocking the other opponent down, you yourself get knocked down, and guess what? That is a turnover as well. Okay, and once that happens, a turnover, that means the other player gets possession. It's the other player's turn, and your turn ends. Okay, now if that person were a blitzer, let's say right here, they have a special skill called the block, and if they have a block, that means not both players fall down, but the person without the block gets to fall down. So that's kind of bad for the Dark Elf right here. Okay. And finally, you get one thing, and this is the skull, and that's bad, okay? So 1 in 6 chance you get a skull. That means you get knocked over, okay? So, and once you get knocked over, you roll an armor roll, and guess what? You get knocked over, that's the end of your turn, so that's a turnover. And those are the 6, or the 5 results you can get on the die. Okay, so now let's look at assisting a block. Alright, so what happens is, alright, if one person is blocking, then the other person can assist the block. So that adds +1 to that person, okay? Okay, so because she has a teammate in the tackle zone of the same player, she's able to assist, okay? So her strength is 3, but now her strength would be 4, okay? And I forgot to mention this. If your strength is higher than the opposing player's strength, then you get to roll 2 dice and you'll be able to pick one, okay? So your chances increase. So right now, she'll block. They have the same strength. They both have strength of 3. But because she's assisting, she has a strength of 4 now. 4 is higher than 3, so she gets to roll 2 dice and choose one. Okay? So she has a POW and the POW dodge. Obviously, it doesn't matter because he doesn't have dodge, but he knocks him down and follows up. Okay, so let's go back to that assist again. Okay, so this person was able to assist her when she blocked, okay? Now, however, let's say one of his teammates is over here, okay? Now, she won't be able to assist because she's in a tackle zone of this guy right here, okay? So she's not able to assist, okay, because she's worried about that guy. So rather than having assist, they're pretty much same strength. They get to roll, she gets to roll 1 die, and it's just a push, okay? So you cannot assist if you cannot use a teammate to assist if they're in another player's tackle zone. Okay, so now that we got blocking and assisting a block out of the way, let me just point out that that is one of the actions that you can do for each of your players during a turn. Okay, so yeah, so you can generally you can move, but if you move, you can't block. Okay, if you got to make a block, you won't be able to move. Okay, so but however, you're allowed to make a blitz action, and you can do that once per turn for one of your players on your team during your turn. Okay, so only one person on a turn can make a blitz action, and a blitz action, it basically is a movement. You can move and block. Okay, so what happens is, so let's say I'm going to have this guy make a blitz action. So what they do is that they move 1 less to their one less of their normal movement phase, or their normal movement value, and the lineman's movement value is 6, so they can move up to 5 and then make a block action, okay? And only that's called a blitz, and only one person on a team per turn can do it. So it'll be like this. So 1, 2, 3, he's in the dead zone, and he'll be able to make it blitz action, and a blitz is basically a block, okay? So let's look at this situation here, okay? He can't assist because he's in her dead zone, so it's a straight up block, strength of 3, 1 die, roll it, and that is both knocked down. He doesn't have a block, neither does she, so they both knock down. So even though you knocked it down, that's a turnover. Okay, so far we talked about 2 actions. We talked about the block, which everyone can do as long as they have a move, and they're adjacent to an enemy player, they can make a block. We talked about the blitz, where one player on the team can make 1 blitz per turn. And now the third action would be the pass, okay? And again, the pass, you can only make 1 pass per turn. However, unlike the block, you can move and pass, okay? So one player can move and pass at the same time. All right, so let's look at it right here. Here's how a pass works. Okay, I have my Dark Elf thrower over here, and she has a receiver right over here, which is a Dark Elf lineman, okay? So what happens is that you declare your passing, and you can do it, you can move first and pass, or you can, you don't have to move or pass. You can throw it while you're in a tackle zone, although it's harder, and I'll explain later. What you do, you take the pass marker, and you put the little hole, the little knot hole over there, and let's see if we can get a good look at this, all right? Yeah, there you go. All right, so you measure it, and notice the little rectangles: quick pass, short pass, long pass, and long bomb. Okay, so you measure it, and you find out look at the receiver and find out which square they fall under. Okay, now let's see. Here's a better angle. You know what? Okay, let me do it this way. It's probably better. Okay, but all right. So if the entire model is underneath the rectangle, then you go by what the rectangle says. If it's on the border, you take the longer pass. Okay. So right now, if you look right here, it's actually on the border of short pass and quick pass. So this would be a short pass. So a short pass, it's an agility. A pass is an agility feat. Okay, a short pass doesn't give any modifiers. A quick pass gives a +1 modifier. A long pass gives a -1 modifier, and a long bomb is a -2 modifier. So the longer the pass, the harder. Okay, so this is a short pass, so there is no modifier at all. So, like I said, the agility of the Dark Elf is 4. So it's a short pass. There's no modifier, so they have to roll a 3 or more. So you say, I declare pass. All right. And I have to roll a 3 or more. And success, okay? Now, not out of the woods yet, okay? Now, the catcher has to catch the ball. And to catch an accurate pass, it's +1, so it's pretty easy, relatively. So, again, the agility of the elves, all the elves, Dark Elves, agility is 4. So, a 4 would be a base 3, but since it's an accurate pass, it's +1, so it's easier to catch. So all this person has to do is roll a 2 or more to catch the ball, and they do, and that's a successful pass. And if the catcher hasn't moved, then they can move after they catch the ball. 1, 2, 3. In this case, it would be a touchdown. Okay? All right, now suppose that the catch was unsuccessful, whether the thrower missed it or the catcher wasn't able to catch it. Then what happens is that you go to the scatter chart, and you got to scatter the ball 3 times. So let's say that the pass was unsuccessful. All right, so she won't be able to catch the ball. 2. And what else? We have another 2, so it goes over there. And then we have another 2, so it scatters all the way down there. So they totally miss it, and the ball ends up there. And since it was an unsuccessful throw, that would be a turnover. Okay, so another thing about throwing the ball is that there are modifiers, okay? So for every opposing player in your tackle zone, that would be a -1, okay? So in this case, it would be a -1. If there were 2 opposing players in your tackle zone, it would be a -2, okay? Denoting that the quarterback's being pressured. All right, so it's going to be a little harder for the quarterback to pass if they're in a dead zone, okay? Also, it'll be harder to catch the ball if the catcher is in a tackle zone of another player. So that would be -1 per each player too. So that in this case, if say we have 2 of them over here, it'll be harder to catch. Okay, and one more thing about the pass. When you're measuring, and then you have any opposing players within the strip, okay, touching any of the triangles or the rectangles, okay, then one person is allowed to make an interception, okay. Now interceptions are very hard, okay, and you're only allowed to pick one player to intercept the ball, and intercepts are -2 to catch, and yes, you do use the rules for tackle zones and everything, okay. So most of the time you'll have to roll a natural 6 in order to intercept the ball. And here's another rule of thumb. A 1 is always a failure, and a 6 is always a success. Okay, so even if like the modifier makes it, requires you to roll like an 8 or a 9 on one die, if you roll a 6, you'll be able to intercept the ball. And in most cases, unless they have like an intercept skill, you'll have to roll a 6 in order to intercept. So once the pass is declared, you can say, hey, my number 4 here is going to intercept. You roll a dice, and if you roll a 6, oh my god, wow, I wish this happened in your game. He intercepted the ball. Alright, so that's how interceptions go, and lucky number 4, good. Now he can take the ball to the other end of the field. Okay, so now that I went over some of the basic rules, let me just show you how the game is set up, alright? First, you have to designate which team is going to be the receiving team and which team is going to be the defensive team, and you can do that by coin flip, roll a dice, or whatever. And what happens is that the defensive team, or the kickoff team, they set up first, okay? And so in this case, let's say the Dark Elf said they'll set up first, and then the receiving team sets up second. So the receiving team has an advantage of where to set up. And there are some hokey rules about the setup. First of all, you must have at least 3 at the line of scrimmage, and the line of scrimmage is basically the midfield. On the wings at the start, you can only have 2 players set up in the wings. You can't have more than that. And you can, like I said, you can only field 11 players at a time. Any extras, you put them in your reserve box. Okay, so this is how the setup goes. So using those basic rules that I've told you, what happens is that in the kickoff, the opposing player chooses a square, so let's say you choose that, and then they roll for scatter. Okay, so scatter, when they kick off, the ball is scattered 3 times, so let's look at our scatter chart. Okay, that's a 4, that's a 1, and that's a 5. Okay, so the ball's right over there. So now the receiving team goes first, and here's another thing. They have to keep track of their own turn, okay? So actually I don't have my turn markers with me, but anyways, let's say use this dice right here. So that'll be turn 1, okay? And if they don't, it's a turnover. I think that's kind of a harsh rule. What I do if someone forgets to use a turn marker, the other team gets a free reroll, okay? And so let's say that the ball ends up right over there, okay? Now, had it ended up on top of a player, they have the opportunity to catch the ball using an agility feat, okay? But in this case it didn't, so it went over there. Alright, so now it'll be the first player's turn, and they can do their blocks and movement for each one of them, as long as they don't turn the ball over. Once the ball is turned, or once there's a turnover that has occurred, it's the other player's turn. And a turnover, in this game, it's a little different than in real football. A turnover is not just an interception or a fumble, okay? A turnover means if, in this game, if one of your players falls down during your turn, that's a turnover. And when that happens, your turn ends and the other player gets the turn, okay? Another turnover is that if you fail to make a pass, that's a turnover. And if you fail to pick up the ball, that is a turnover, okay? So let's say, let's try this. Okay, so let's say my first move will be the thrower getting the ball. Now this is probably risky, but let me see. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now to pick up the ball, it's an agility feat +1, and the agility of my thrower is 3. So it would be a base 4 or more to make an agility feat. But since it's easier to pick up the ball, it's only a 3 or more. Okay. So if I roll 3 or more, he picks the ball, and yes, he did. Now, that was kind of risky, because if I picked up the ball and dropped it, guess what? That's a turnover. So what you want to do, you want to like get maybe your blocks out of the way first before you pick up the ball, okay? Then again, if one of your blocks fails and the ball's still out there and you didn't go after it, then you have a problem. All right, so that's how the turnover works. So yeah, you make your blocks, and once all your blocks and actions are done, or a turnover happens, the other team gets it. Each person gets a turn, and they keep going and going, and they have to do it within 8 turns. They go on until 8 turns, and whoever gets one of their players with the ball into the opposing player's end zone gets a point. Okay, and that's pretty much how the game is. And I know there's a lot of details that I missed out, but this game has so much that there's really no way I can put it into one video, okay? But that's pretty much how the game works, and there are skills and everything, but it's pretty much rugby in a box.
Okay, I gotta admit, this was a very hard game to sort of explain into one video, because there's so much going on in this game. And I couldn't even really show you how one turn goes. I just had to pretty much tell you what the basics were, and then just sort of see how the game flows from that. But it's a really fun game, very deep, and it does feel like football. And the thing is, the good thing about this is the campaign. You can play an entire season, and you can watch your players improve, and that is a really cool part of this game. Now, another thing is that this is more of a hobby style game, okay? And hobby style games, they're like games that you really have to put a lot of time into it, and there's like more to it than just the game itself. There's like painting the models, and and there's like an RPG element of improving your players, giving skills and everything like that, and that adds for a very rich campaign. Okay, so yeah, so hopefully these little videos will show you. This is the actual gameplay that I'm showing you right now between me and my friend, and we're playing an Orcs versus Dark Elf game, and it really does feel like football. A lot of strategy goes in, and that turnover rule is great because it really adds tension to each turn, and also it forces you to prioritize your moves. Okay, you want to do the you don't want to do the risky moves at the beginning, or else it's going to be a turnover. And also it sort of you really have to think out, do the easy plays first, so you can do more plays and everything, and then do the high risk play at the end. And so that adds a lot of strategy, and there is a ton of strategy in this game. And if you are familiar with football, you can actually use those real football strategies. I remember, I was doing like the Green Bay sweep one time. I made, like, as Lombardi would say, make a seal here and a seal here and run it straight up the alley. I actually did that play, and it worked effectively. So yeah, if you like football, this is the game. I mean, because you can, like I said, you can use football tactics in this game, and the miniatures are really, really good. The ones that are seen right here, some of it's Games Workshop, some of it's from other third-party miniature companies, but you'll have to search around for minis because I believe Games Workshop's not. I don't think they're making any more Blood Bowl miniatures. And if you're a really good artist, maybe you can convert some of the Warhammer or Warhammer 40,000 miniatures that they have at GW and make a football team out of it. Okay, but yeah, so like I said, there is just so much going on in this game. So this is kind of really for hardcore miniature war gamers. But in my opinion, I think it really combines the essence of a miniature war game and football. Really good game.
All right, a long time ago, before Euro games, I've been a gamer, consider myself a gamer all my life, or most of my life, and before the craze of Euro games hit America, I played like one or two main games, okay? And I was a big fan of the the Games Workshop's board games way back when. I guess you could say like mid to late 80s, okay? There was Chainsaw Warrior, Rogue Trooper, Talisman, which was that was probably my first GW game I played, Blood Royale, and there were others that were pretty good. And one of them was definitely Blood Bowl. Okay, now back then, the first edition, it was more like, okay, it was good, it was innovative, it was pretty neat. I mean, a football themed game set in a fantasy universe, but and it was fun. But as I played with my friends, we later found out that we don't even need the football. You can just put the football down, and then it really just turned into a Warhammer Fantasy skirmish. Okay, all right. So that was the first edition. Okay, and I used to have first edition. I no longer have it. However, I still have my second edition, which came out a little later. Ugh, this hefty little box. Okay, and this kind of corrected that problem of just putting the football down and everyone beating each other up, okay? This actually made, it encouraged you to get touchdowns, all right? While in the other game, the first edition, yeah, I mean, it was easy to find out that, hey, the most efficient way to win is kill everybody on the other team, all right? Put the football down and kill one other team. This one encouraged passing the ball, getting into ends, or running plays. It made the football important, okay? And it added a few more things like star players and a more rich campaign with special skills and all that. So this was a good upgrade, I thought, to first edition. Now the problem was that first edition, it took a long time, and let me show you the other. These are other expansions of first edition. Star players, which added like star players that you can purchase, and the companions, which added a few more star players and more rules. Okay, all right. Okay, so the second edition was good, maybe a little. It kind of bogged down with so many rules and everything, and games took forever. All right, so I mean, second edition was good, but it wasn't perfect. All right, and then comes third edition. Okay, and this is the last edition. Now the rulebook has been upgraded several times, and there's an upgraded. It's called Living Rulebook 6 that you can download for free online, and this third edition really polished the game up. Okay, now there was the controversial rule was the turnover rule that I just showed you, and at first it seemed like a ridiculous rule, but after a while you kind of realize that the turnover rule was it's actually very good, and it's very innovative in my opinion, because basically what it does, it forces you to think out your moves in order, and it adds more tension to every single move you make. Okay. And so, for instance, like I said, if you fail a block, or if you make a block and you fall down, or if you fail a pass, right? I mean, the other team gets the ball. So what you want to do your high percentage plays first and save maybe the high risk play for last. All right. So you at least get to move your other players before you potentially turn the ball over. Okay. And that at first I didn't like it, but man, after a while, it was an ingenious introduction to the game, the turnover rule. And yeah, the rules are more polished up. It has a nice, rich campaign. And the book, so right now, Living Rulebook 6, I think it's been polished, and I think that's the best version you can get now. So anyways, this is the only available version, and this is really the only version I play now. I don't play 2nd edition or 1st edition. It's pretty much 3rd edition, and that's how it should be. Now, unfortunately, as I record this, Games Workshop, I don't think they're supporting this anymore. I went on their website, I think just yesterday, yeah, and the only thing they just have a few copies of the base game, and that's it. They used to have a nice line of miniatures, but now it's just the base game, and that's pretty unfortunate because this is a good game. But I guess GW, they want to concentrate on their money makers, which is Warhammer 40K and Warhammer Fantasy. So yeah, the specialist games on Games Workshop are eventually being phased out, and that includes Blood Bowl. Right, so that's kind of unfortunate, but the base game is still available. It's not cheap. Well, I guess considering if you're familiar with Games Workshop, which has the most outrageous prices for their miniatures, this is not too bad. It's $82 for the complete game. You get the complete game, rule book, and then you can download an upgraded rule book online for free. And it has 2 teams. It has 12 orc figures and 12 human figures. Okay, so with the board and the dugouts and everything, so it's decent. Okay, it's not that bad. All right. Now, unfortunately, if you want to get other teams, yeah, like I said, Games Workshop, they don't have any more miniatures. However, there is a nice online community out there, and there's a lot of miniature places like oh man, I forgot what that company from Spain, Kaminoxos, I think. There's Impact Miniatures, there's Grebo Miniatures, there's Wiley Miniatures, Gapez Arts. They all have really nice miniatures for Blood Bowl, so they're still supporting the game. But you know, I think if you're living in America, it might cost a bit more because you are buying overseas. All right, so those miniatures. So if you look hard enough, you'll be able to get miniatures for this game. And heck, you know, maybe you can just make your own miniatures or proxy them. That's fine. I personally like using the actual miniatures that look like football. All right. But anyways, this is a very good game, and I really enjoyed it all my time playing it, and it feels like football. Okay, I mean, every time I play it, it feels like football, even though the rules are not, you know, there's no first downs or, you know, field goals or anything like that. It's pretty much like rugby, really. The ball's in the middle, whoever gets the end zone gets a point, you know what I mean? So it kind of, the rules are kind of like rugby, but the cool thing about this is that you can actually use real football tactics, okay, by setting up block schemes and making like football plays. I remember one time when I was playing with my Dark Elf team, okay, and they're decent passers, okay. They're not as, you know, they don't throw the long ball like the regular elves, but I remember sort of like, let me see, sweeping my team to another side with my quarterback with the ball, attracting his defense, and then throwing a screen on the other side, just like a screen pass in football. Yeah, so yeah, you can actually use football tactics in this game, and that is cool. And if you're a football fan and like fantasy, this is definitely up your alley, and it's definitely up my alley because I love football and I like the fantasy theme. Okay, so yeah, you can use that, and it really feels. I mean, it's really violent. Okay, I don't know if you like that or not. I personally do like it. And the races are real unique. They all have their unique style. Like dwarves are like ground and pound. Elves are a passing game, but they're not as strong. Humans have no real special abilities, but then again, they don't have any weaknesses. And the orcs are like pretty brutal. Okay, they just like to ground and pound. Well, not ground and pound. They're decent, all right, but they're more like a, you know, physical team. So each race has a different feel. Okay. Now the drawback about that is, okay, they're like, as I recall, there's probably like 26 official teams in the living rulebook, okay? Not all of them are balanced, okay? There's maybe a few races you'll play, Skaven, humans, orcs, maybe dwarves. A lot of people don't like this, they're too slow and you really need to pass the game. Elves, you know, so it's not a balanced game, but you know what? It's fun, okay? And you can, you know, it really feels like football after you play this game. And another drawback, well, actually, let me give you one of the positives. The campaign is awesome, I think. It's pretty neat to watch your players improve and gain skills game to game. and then and especially if you start naming them, you kind of develop a bond with them. So it's almost like an RPG, to be honest. But you know, it's really just a board game. But if you play a campaign or play an entire season, it's really cool, and you know, you get money, and there's a nice balancing system. So if you have like a superpowered team and you're playing a weaker team, the weaker team will get things called inducements, okay, and they give a little advantage to almost even out the play field, okay. So that's another good thing about this. Now the drawback is it does require some time, and it's not just a straight up board game, just like Warhammer 40K and Fantasy. It's more like a hobby, all right? You want to paint your miniatures, and you've probably seen the miniatures I paint. I'm not the greatest painter in the world, but they look cool when they're painted. It's definitely involved. There's a lot of rules, as you can see. In fact, I had to do several takes because trying to organize all the rules to explain it to you guys was quite a task. Okay. In fact, little secret, I tried to get this done before the Super Bowl, but I couldn't. But anyways, yeah, it is involved. So you know, it's pretty much it's a nerdy game. Okay, it's a very nerdy game. You're not gonna. This is not for. It's not the gateway game. Definitely not. But yeah, I do like it. And after 25 years, I still like it. Okay, and to be honest, I sort of got back into playing it because I think I bought the Fantasy Flight card game version, Blood Bowl Team Manager, and I played it and I liked the game. But then I was kind of like. I was kind of nostalgic for the board game, so I went over into my basement, not basement, garage. We don't have basements in California. I went to my garage and I gathered all my old Blood Bowl stuff and I started playing again. So yeah, and as I play it today, it's still good. Okay, I love it. All right, may not be for everyone, but like I said, if you're a board gamer and you like football, definitely Blood Bowl. Okay. Anyways, okay, so that's it. So what I'll do, I will give Blood Bowl to this day a 9 out of 10. Okay, yes, classic game, and I'll probably be playing this forever. And I really hope someone picks up their license of GW, starts supporting it, and makes more versions of this because this is a really good game. All right, that is it. All right, so until next time, I will see you all later. Goodbye.